What you are about to hear might be the most important conversation in WWE right now, and if you sleep on it, you are going to miss the moment that changes everything. Welcome back to Wrestling Juice, and today we are diving deep into a rivalry so personal, so explosive, and so loaded with consequence that it has the entire wrestling world holding its breath. Roman Reigns and CM Punk are on a collision course toward their championship showdown on April 19th, 2026, and the further this story develops, the more it becomes clear that this is not just another feud. This is a war, and the casualties are only just beginning to pile up. Both of these men are currently operating in a headspace that we rarely see, even by WWE standards. The anger is real, the motivation is volcanic, and the desire to completely dismantle one another has seeped into every single interaction they have had on television. This is not manufactured intensity for the sake of a promotional graphic. You can feel it in the way they carry themselves, in the way they speak, and especially in the way they fight. When Roman Reigns and CM Punk are in the same building, something dangerous is always about to happen. Roman's anger makes complete sense when you trace it back to where he has been. He lost his historic Universal Championship reign, a reign that defined an entire era of WWE programming, and since then he has suffered back-to-back losses at WrestleMania, the grandest stage the company has to offer. For a man who built his entire identity around dominance and inevitability, those losses cut deeper than any finishing move ever could. CM Punk, right now, is the physical embodiment of everything standing between Roman Reigns and his redemption. Every time Punk walks out holding that World Heavyweight Championship, it is a reminder of what Roman no longer has, and that reminder feeds a fury that makes Roman genuinely terrifying to be around. Punk's anger comes from an entirely different place, but it is no less powerful. He is the reigning World Heavyweight Champion, and instead of being celebrated as the top dog he has worked his entire career to become, he is constantly being undermined, disrespected, and targeted. He is dealing with Paul Heyman's manipulations, including that deeply unsettling arrest angle that blurred the lines between storyline and reality in the most uncomfortable way possible. He is fighting every single week to prove that his championship reign is not a fluke, that he genuinely belongs at the top of WWE's mountain, and that when the moment of truth arrives, he can defeat the man who has been called the final boss of professional wrestling. That combination of defensive pride and burning competitive fire is the exact formula that produces classic championship feuds, the kind that people talk about for decades. The April 19th date hanging over everything creates a countdown that gives every weekly television show a sense of urgency. You feel it in the background of every segment. One more week has passed. The clock is ticking. When you know the destination, every step of the journey takes on added meaning, and the ticking clock transforms what might otherwise be a standard contract signing or a backstage confrontation into a preview of the inevitable detonation that is coming. These are two men who know exactly where this is headed, and that awareness makes the pre-match period feel almost unbearable in the best possible way. The in-ring exchanges we have already witnessed tell you everything you need to know about the style of match we should expect on April 19th. This is not going to be a technical showcase where two athletes attempt to out-wrestle one another through submission attempts and chain wrestling sequences. These are two men who want to cause each other genuine physical harm, and that intention shows up in the way every strike lands with bad intentions behind it, in the power moves that are designed not just to score a near fall but to injure, and in the near falls themselves, which create those heart-stopping moments where you genuinely believe the match might be over before the story has been fully told. The in-ring vocabulary of this rivalry is violence, and both men are fluent. Bron Breakker's presence in these exchanges adds an entirely different layer to an already complex narrative. Whether this points toward a triple threat scenario or Breakker simply inserting himself opportunistically into the championship picture, his involvement creates an unpredictability that keeps you on your toes. You never quite know whose side Breakker is on, whether he has an alliance with either man, or whether he is simply an ambitious young superstar who has decided that the best way to establish himself at the top level is to walk into the most high-profile feud in WWE and make his presence felt. Breakker has been positioned as a rising star with genuine main event potential, and associating himself with a rivalry of this magnitude elevates him in a way that months of regular programming simply could not. The powerbomb in particular has become a defining visual of this feud. Whether it is Roman driving Punk through an announce table, Punk managing to hit the go-to-sleep after escaping a powerbomb attempt, or Breakker delivering one to both men at separate moments, those big impact moves are the ones that generate the viral clips, the animated GIFs, the social media reactions, and the conversations that keep a feud alive outside of the television hours. Now here is where this entire situation shifts from a heated singles rivalry into something far grander and far more consequential. Both men are reportedly building armies, and the strategic chess match happening behind the scenes might end up being just as important as whatever happens inside the ring on April 19th. CM Punk, recognizing that Roman Reigns has never truly operated alone and that the Bloodline's greatest weapon has always been its numbers, is apparently assembling a coalition of superstars who share a common enemy. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, and in WWE, few factions have created more enemies than the Bloodline has over the years. The names being floated as potential allies for Punk are genuinely exciting. LA Knight makes absolute sense as a recruit because his entire character is built on anti-establishment defiance. He naturally opposes authoritarian power structures, and the Bloodline is the most authoritarian faction WWE has seen in the modern era. Beyond the character alignment, Knight's microphone ability paired with Punk's legendary promo skills would create a verbal partnership capable of matching anything Roman and Heyman have to offer, which historically has been the Bloodline's most lethal weapon. Knight also has his own grudges within the ecosystem of characters surrounding Roman's faction, which means his motivation to get involved feels genuine rather than convenient. Sami Zayn as a potential Punk ally is where this story becomes genuinely poetic. Sami was inside the Bloodline. He was Roman's honorary use, a man who was brought into the family and who, for a period of time, found a sense of belonging he had never experienced elsewhere in WWE. And then, at the Royal Rumble, in one of the most emotionally charged moments in recent wrestling history, Sami turned on them, choosing friendship and integrity over protection and power. The betrayal of the Bloodline by Sami Zayn was not just a storyline beat. It was a character-defining moment that told you exactly who Sami Zayn is as a human being. The idea of him now standing alongside CM Punk to fight against the very family that once called him one of their own is layered with history, emotion, and the kind of personal stakes that elevate wrestling beyond sport and into genuine storytelling. Kevin Owens, Sami's best friend, whose recent injury kept him sidelined, could factor in as well. Jon Moxley, whose return was triggered by Paul Heyman's machinations and whose Shield brotherhood with Roman adds a complicated emotional undercurrent to all of this, represents another fascinating possibility. The speculation itself is part of the experience, because every week you find yourself turning the possibilities over in your mind, wondering who is going to show up and what side they will be on. On the other side of the board, Roman Reigns is doing what Roman Reigns has always done when the stakes get high enough. He is rebuilding his family. Reforming the Bloodline by bringing his cousins back into the fold restores the numbers advantage that made his historic championship reign so sustainable and so dominant. The Usos, Jay and Jimmy, Solo Sikoa, and potentially other members of the Anwi family returning to Roman's side would send a clear message that the era of the Bloodline is not over. It's simply paused, and a reformed, hungry, motivated Bloodline with something to prove would be an even more dangerous proposition than the one that came before. The name being circulated as a potential new recruit for the Bloodline is Jacob Fatu, and if that happens, it changes the entire landscape of this feud in an instant. Jacob Fatu has been tearing through other promotions with a combination of athleticism, size, and in-ring ability that most people did not expect from a big man. He is widely regarded as one of the most talented wrestlers not currently under WWE contract, and if he debuts specifically as a Bloodline member brought in to counter CM Punk's growing coalition, that debut carries immediate credibility, immediate threat, and immediate star power. A bloodline featuring a debuting Jacob Fatu alongside returning Uso members would be an absolute nightmare for anyone standing in their way, which is exactly the point. The beauty of this factional warfare structure is the sheer volume of storytelling possibilities it creates. You could have a traditional Survivor Series-style elimination tag match between Punk's team and the Bloodline. You could have a War Games bout if the timing and the roster alignment makes sense. You could build toward the singles championship match through a series of tag encounters where individual rivalries within the two factions develop their own heat and their own narratives. Punk could spend weeks fighting outnumbered while his allies are picked off or prevented from helping, creating the dramatic isolated hero scenario before the cavalry finally arrives. Each of these options gives multiple wrestlers meaningful screen time, meaningful roles in a high-profile story, and the kind of exposure that genuinely moves careers forward. The genuine uncertainty about who walks out of April 19th as World Heavyweight Champion is what makes this feud so compelling from a creative standpoint. Roman winning the title would complete a redemption arc that began the moment he lost his Universal Championship, delivering the emotional payoff that a multi-year character journey seems to be building toward. But CM Punk retaining the championship by defeating Roman Reigns cleanly, the most dominant champion of the modern era, would be a legitimizing statement of the highest order. A clean win over Roman Reigns means something that a win over almost anyone else simply cannot match. Both outcomes are defensible. Both outcomes create compelling stories for what comes next, and that genuine unpredictability is a rare and precious thing in professional wrestling. The reports of Punk potentially considering retirement at some point in the relatively near future add a layer of urgency and poignancy to this rivalry that transforms it from a championship program into something closer to a legacy conversation. If this championship reign might be among the last chapters of CM Punk's WWE story, then every defense, every confrontation, and every near fall carries the weight of finality. Beating Roman Reigns, the man whose historic title reign set the standard for what championship dominance looks like in the 21st century, would be the kind of legacy-defining achievement you choose to retire on. It would be the exclamation point at the end of a career sentence that has been nothing short of extraordinary. That possibility makes Punk more dangerous, not less, because a man with nothing left to prove and everything left to give is the most unpredictable force in any arena. Triple H's creative fingerprints are all over how this rivalry is being constructed, and that is worth acknowledging. The approach being taken here reflects a philosophy of long-term storytelling with earned payoffs, of elevating multiple talents simultaneously rather than funneling all of the spotlight into a single chosen superstar, of building faction warfare that creates roster-wide depth rather than isolated feuds that begin and end in a vacuum. What you are watching with this Reigns versus Punk rivalry, with its factional dimensions and its multiple layers of personal history, is a story being told by people who understand that the best professional wrestling does not just entertain you in the moment. It makes you care about what happens next, and the next chapter after that. Roman retaining through bloodline interference, while Punk gets his moment, the story continues.